Welcome! In this explainer, we are diving deep into one of the most intense and pivotal chapters in the entire Bible, Matthew 26. This chapter is just packed with contrasts. We're talking extravagant love right up against cold-hearted betrayal and incredible courage next to some really deep human weakness. So let's break this powerful chapter down moment by moment.
Okay, so here's our plan. We're going to start with the conspiracy that's brewing against Jesus right as the Passover festival kicks off. Then we'll see two totally different reactions to him, one of just, wow, incredible devotion, and another of pure deceit. From there, we'll sit in on the Last Supper, feel the tension in the Garden of Gethsemane, and finally watch the trial and Peter's famous denial unfold.
All right, so the scene opens just 2 days before Passover. Now, you got to remember, this was the most important celebration of the year for the Jewish people. They're celebrating their freedom from slavery in Egypt, so Jerusalem would have been absolutely jammed with people, pilgrims from all over.
And right in the middle of all this festival buzz, Jesus says something incredibly chilling and specific. This isn't some vague feeling. He tells his disciples exactly what is about to happen to him. And this is so important because it shows us that Jesus isn't just a helpless victim of circumstance. No, he's fully aware and in control, walking a path that he has chosen. And at the very same time Jesus is saying this, somewhere else in the city, the religious leaders are having a secret meeting, and they're basically proving him right. Their plan? Arrest Jesus quietly and kill him. But they've got a problem. Jesus is popular. They are genuinely afraid of the crowds, which forces them to plot in the shadows.
Now, this is where Matthew, the writer, does something just brilliant. He puts two completely opposite stories right next to each other. And that's not by accident. It's a really powerful way to show us the two extreme ways people were responding to Jesus.
So first, picture this. We're at a dinner party in a town called Bethany. A woman, we don't even get her name, walks up to Jesus and she's holding this beautiful jar made of alabaster, and it's full of incredibly expensive perfume. And then she does something that would have made the whole room gasp. She pours the entire thing over his head. It's this act of beautiful, almost reckless love. Now the disciples, they get angry. They see it as a total waste of money that could have gone to the poor. But Jesus shuts them down immediately. He doesn't just defend her, he tells them what her action really means. She's anointing him for his upcoming burial. And the very next thing we read could not be more different. We see one of Jesus' own inner circle, Judas, go to those same religious leaders to betray his teacher. And his question is just chilling. What are you willing to give me for him? Their answer? 30 pieces of silver, the value of a slave. Just think about that contrast. One person offers a gift worth a year's salary, and another sells him out for pocket change.
Putting those two stories back to back really forces you to stop and think. One person sees Jesus as worthy of everything she has, while one of his own friends sees him as worth, well, almost nothing. It's a powerful look at how differently we can value the exact same thing or person.
Okay, so from this moment of betrayal, the story shifts to one of its most famous scenes. It's now Thursday night, the Passover meal itself, and Jesus is with his 12 disciples in a quiet room, sharing this final meal together. And in this close, intimate setting, Jesus drops another bombshell. He looks at them and says, "One of you is going to betray me." Can you imagine the shock in that room? They all start denying it. "Surely not I, Lord." Then, in this quiet, devastating little moment, Jesus confirms to Judas, maybe in a whisper, that he knows it's him. Then, right in the middle of all this tension, Jesus does something that changes everything. He takes the bread and wine, these ancient symbols of the Passover, and he gives them a completely new meaning. He says the bread is his body, and the wine is his blood, the blood of a new covenant, a new promise from God, sealed by his own death for the forgiveness of sins. After the meal, they head out to a nearby olive grove called Gethsemane, and it's here, in the dark, that we get this raw, unfiltered look at Jesus' humanity. He tells his closest friends that his soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. This is deep, deep anguish. He's praying so intensely he's on his face on the ground. He asks God if there's any other way, if this cup of suffering can pass from him. But even in that agony, he ends his prayer with total submission. Not my will, but yours be done. And that's the key, his commitment to his Father's plan, no matter the personal cost. And while Jesus is going through this unbelievable spiritual battle, what are his closest friends doing? They're failing him.
He asks them for one thing: just stay awake and pray with me. And 3 different times he comes back and finds them asleep. It's such a human moment, isn't it? As Jesus says, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. What a contrast to his own strength in that moment.
And then the moment comes. Judas shows up with a crowd carrying swords and clubs. He uses a kiss, a sign of friendship, to identify Jesus. One of the disciples tries to fight back, but Jesus immediately stops the violence. He makes it so clear that this is his choice. He could call down thousands of angels if he wanted to, but he's here to fulfill the scriptures. And in that moment of truth, all his disciples abandon him and run.
Jesus is taken to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest, for a nighttime trial before the Jewish council. This whole thing was completely illegal by their own laws. It was rushed, it was at night, and it was designed for only one outcome: to find a reason to sentence him to death. The shepherd is struck, and the sheep have scattered.
The trial is basically a sham. They're trying to find false witnesses, but they can't even get their stories straight. Finally, the high priest gets frustrated, puts Jesus under oath, and asks him point blank, "Are you the Christ, the Son of God?" And Jesus' reply, "It is as you said," is all they need. They call it blasphemy, and the verdict is death. So while Jesus is inside, facing his accusers with this quiet dignity, his most confident disciple, Peter, is completely falling apart outside in the courtyard. 3 different times, someone recognizes him, and each time, Peter's denial gets stronger and more desperate, from a simple, "I don't know what you're talking about," to actually cursing and swearing that he never knew the man.
And then, just like Jesus said would happen, a rooster crows. That sound just cuts through the air, and Peter remembers Jesus' words. The weight of what he's just done crushes him, and he runs out and just weeps bitterly.
Matthew 26 is just so raw and so powerful. It brilliantly shows us the divine strength of Jesus right alongside the very real, very human failures of the people closest to him. We see it all: extravagant worship, cold betrayal, agonizing resolve, and heartbreaking denial. It really leaves us with a challenging thought to take away. In this story of humanity at its absolute best and its worst, where do we see ourselves?